Maseches Bava Kama Daf Mem Tes Amud Beis. The two dots, about I don't know how many lines, about 10 or so lines from the top of the page. Begavayu, line starts with Begavayu, and the two dots tell us Boy Minei Rav Yeva Sava Rav Nachman, and this is the Shiur is Lulu Nishmas of Imoyer Menachem Ben Akiva. So as Moshe Fu As Noch Lionel Ben Yulia Oria. פנינה חי בסגול הרוכל ולנשמס יחזקאל בן פגת צפוירו סך שחוד ישראל. He was nifter yesterday. Boy minei Rav Yeva Sava Rav Nachman. Rabbi Yeva Sava asked the question of Rav Nachman, and this has to do with nichsei hager. We all know that a ger that dies childless, then what's the story? His nechosim are automatically hefker ve'elt. Let's say a ger, if we're talking here about a ger that has a karka, and that karka has a shtar as a proof, he owns the karka and the shtar is the shtar that shows you that he's the owner, or do we say that the ger lent money to someone? He's a very nice guy, Avram McKenzie, and now the person who owes him money mortgaged Meshabed the karka to him, and he holds the shtar over the karka. Now the ger has a shtar over a karka. Whichever way you look at it, the ger has a shtar, and the ger died, and that shtar symbolizes, so to speak, the fact that he has a piece of land. Let's say a person ran into the house of the ger. He got a WhatsApp. That ger died and he has no children. He runs to the house to grab as much as he can. And what does he grab over there? A shtar. Shtar. Shtar says in the shtar that this and that land is mine or is owed to me. Okay, very nice. Man, what's the story in that case? Man de machzik b'shto. Sorry, man is not a question. Man is who? Man de machzik b'shto. Adaite de arahu de machzik. That person is so wrong, so sad. That person is holding the shtar, thinking, adaite, in his mind, he thinks that he's holding the land through the shtar. Maybe that guy learned Kiddushin, where it says the shtar is like the chain, the afsara of the land, but he's misunderstanding it. He thinks that if he holds the shtar, that's the way to be koine the karka, but just holding the shtar. He is wrong. No, he did not hold the land. If he did not hold the land itself, meaning not hold the land, you can't really hold a piece of land unless you're Hercules. He did chazaka. What he should have gone into the actual land, wherever the land is, could be some kibbutz up north, wherever the land is, and there he should have done a kinyan. Noal, godal, poratz, masra. He didn't do it. He didn't actually touch, so to speak, the land itself. He's holding the shtar, and that is not just to hold the shtar does not make you bailim over the land. And that's actually not even, that's not debatable. That's even before the question started. By the way, I'm stopping myself. I still owe you stuff from yesterday, and I'll talk about it later. There's this question I'll answer afterwards. Ube'ara haloi achzik. He did not hold the land, did not do kinyan chazok on the land. V'shtoro, now the question is about the shtar. That shtar, don't laugh, that shtar is a very nice shtar. The actual shtar itself, the piece of paper is not necessarily some little mingy regular office A4 white paper. That shtar could be what? The shtar made out of cloth. Or maybe the shtar itself is not expensive, but the shtar is something that you can use in order to cover your bottle. Yeah. So the question is as follows. Now, the shtor nami loy kono. The shtar he did not acquire. Why? The lav daite the shtar, which means when the person held the shtar in order to be koine the shtar, in order to be koine the land, and the land he did not buy, do we say that it has like a second plan B? Do we say that he says, well, one side says shtar loy kono, lav daite shtar. He did not think of the shtar as the shtar. He only thought of the shtar as means to get the land, and that ain't working for sure. The question, is, do we say that the shtar itself, the piece of paper, is his or not his? Do we say, Lav daita shtoro? That person didn't occur to him, bichlal, that he wants to buy the piece of paper. I'll give you a very good modern day example, even though that can also happen nowadays, exactly the same. I'll give you an example. Let's say you mistakenly, somebody wants to pull your leg. And what does he do? He wants to make fun of you, which I don't hold of yet, whatever. And he tells you, "Heart, take." Oh, wow. I mean, my car is not so fancy, but yeah, he gives you his the keys to his Porsche, yeah, or Porsche, yeah. So then you think, I'm buying the Porsche, Shia, and really, all he means to do, yeah, he didn't mean that, or maybe whatever. It doesn't work that way. Do you actually kind of the keys themselves? It's nice to have the key where it says the Porsche. It looks very classy. When I had in mind to buy the car, do we say that if I didn't buy the car, then by some kind of default or plan B, I have the actual key, or in this case, the actual shtar, right? Then, or we say, loy kon lav daite de shtoro, or dilma, or maybe daite nami a shtoro. Daite nami, some achronim explain, nami means some people want to buy the shtar, not that he wants both. We never say that the person wants the karka and he also wants the shtar. He wants the shtar only in order to get the karka. However, do we say that some people know, well, I can't, if I can't make it for the shtar as of itself in order to be coin of the karka, then I'll just be coin of the shtar itself. Do we say that the shtar itself is nikne or not nikne? What do we assume is a person's mind? How do chachomim view people's mind? Do we view them as saying it's all or nothing? If I'm not going to the land, then I don't need that shtar. That's not in my mind. Or do we say no? If I don't get the real Porsche, the real thing, the real shtar, the real land, is nice, huge piece of land. Maybe okay. Plan B is to get the shtar itself. Maybe yes. Well, depends on human psychology. So that's what Rav Yeva Sava asked Rav Nachman Meuman. Omar Lay, quick, no, yeah, questions. Let's say a woman has a black. Yeah. She goes to we have a Saba too, Rav Nachman. There's another question now coming. Well, first we'll finish the Gemara. You okay? Yeah. Omar Lay, so Rav Nachman answered, Ani Moiri, tell me, Rabbi, tell me, my Moiri, as I told you, he's asking rhetorically, do you think people actually need a piece of paper, stam, in order to cover their sloich is not a plate, by the way, to cover the bottle? Is that so? That's not what people have in mind. Omer Lei, says Rav Nachman, yeah, or I think no, says Rav Yeva Sava, lotzu velotzu, yes, and yes. In other words, yeah, some people, chad pami is expensive. Paper is expensive. The cost chad pami. They say if you see a beggar begging with a chad pami cup, he's not reliable. He's so rich, he can have the chad pami cup. So how come he's begging for money? Yeah, what's going on here? Yeah, he's a millionaire. He has a disposable cup. So in any event, it says lotzu velotzu. Yes, enochinami. The person may want a piece of paper in order to actually own that. And if he doesn't go for the gold, he'd go for the bronze, not the silver. He'd go for the piece of paper. I looked yesterday in the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch, and they both pass in that way. I also owe you from before Psak Halacha of the previous sugya, but please wait with that. Lotzu v'lotzu. Halacha is enochinami. If a person goes into the house of a girl, and that girl obviously dead and no children, everything is hefker. So then he's koine the shtar, he's not koine the land, but the shtar itself, he is koine. Yeah, we don't say that he doesn't have his mind on the shtar. He has his mind set on the karka, mimela, the shtar falls between the cracks. No, the shtar is also on his mind in the back, so to say, the back burner of his mind. The Meforshim, the Shach over there asks a question. He says, how do the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch know that that's the halacha? The Rambam, this is very important for you guys to know, for all of us to know. Obviously, when the Rishonim paskan halacha, they're chas v'shalom not throwing the dice to decide halacha this or that way. Over here, there's an argument, and that's the end of the sugya. Nothing is resolved over here, b'chlal, right? Nothing is resolved to say whether the shtar. Nobody proved anything. Nobody brought a brisa. Nobody brought a mishnah. No, the Gemara doesn't have a give and take with some kind of teku. Stam. The Gemara finishes off, trailing off, and then how does Rambam know? Lotzur. Answer, very, very interesting. Answer is the Shach. He says, I think it's a Shach. I think it's a Shach. Says the Shach like this. He says, This entire discussion ignores the fact that there's a Kinyan called, which very soon we're going to see, Kinyan Chatzer. Kinyan Chatzer means it's in my house. If I took that shtar to my house, it's koine. Whether I have specific kavanah or not, as long as I know that the shtar is there, right? And I don't have a negative kavanah, the shtar is in my domain, then the shtar, right, as opposed to what, as we're going to see later, the Gemara is going to say that Kinyan Chatzer koine shaloi midaitoi. Yeah, the Gemara says koine shaloi midaitoi. Chatzer may be koine for a person without his knowledge. What that means is a very, very dangerous, and I spoke about it a few days ago. You have to know exactly what it means. But for now, we'll be general about it. Even if the person doesn't have specific kavanah, I want that shtar for the purpose of shtar and not for the purpose of the land. As long as it's within your domain, in your chatzer, that's good enough. Mimela, the Shach says Geoinish. He says this entire sugya, Rav Yeva Saba and Rav Nachman, they don't believe in that concept. They think that even though it's in my chatzer, I still have to have a super duper specific kavanah. I want the paper for the sake of the paper and not for the land. But that's not true. This entire sugya is kilo outside the realm of halacha l'maisa. Halacha l'maisa we'll see later on. Halacha is like Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi says later on, let me just see a second. Rabbi Yosi Bar Chanina says later on, your chatzer is koine for you anyways, unless you have a negative kavanah, you don't know b'chlal that it's there. If you know that the item is in your chatzer, even without an active kavanah, I want this for this and that, it's koine. Mimela, the Rambam passed in that way because he took that entire sugya out of the context and brought the halacha context. It's yours anyways. It's yours anyways. Yeah, even without a very specific heilige kavunas. You know it's there. Yes, it's in a chatzer. Yes, you generally not against owning it. Yes, that's good enough. Mainly that's how the Rambam came to that. Although there's a Tosfos who says otherwise in Bava Basra, but I don't want to confuse you. We'll leave it for now. But that's a good question and answer for the halacha. For halacha, that's for sure. No, the dira for sure is not koine. The dira, he has to be koine specifically. That's not even on the cards. I said it. Of course, he's not koine the piece of land of the ger. That's not the discussion, because it's not the way to be koine land. It's not kesef, not shtar. The shtar should be, and not chazako. He's barking the wrong tree. The question is, did he get plan B? He's not the owner of the Porsche, but is he the owner of the fancy keys of the Porsche? That's the question. Yes, he got it, but was the halachically koine it? It's in his hands or in his chotzer, but that's good for the question. According to Rav Nachman in Rav Yeva Sava, he has to have kavanah specifically. I mean, not lefi both of them. I'm sorry. Lefi the maskon of this short discussion, he has to have kavanah. I want the shtar for the sake of the shtar, as a piece of paper, even though I'm not really using it for the real purpose, which I cannot achieve of the kark of the real land. That's the name of the game. Says the Rambam, he's koine. He's koine for lotro pitzluchisto. He's koine a piece of paper. Paper used to be a very expensive thing in the past, or whatever. Cloth could be today. Very fancy piece of cloth. I want it. I'll sell it to the museum. Yeah, in 100 years' time, it'll be very nice antique, a shtar of a ger, something like that. Yeah. Okay. Amar Rabba. Says Rabba. Now more about the money of the ger. Amar Rabba. Meshkoina shel Yisrael b'yad ger. Meshkoina shel Yisrael b'yad ger. A ger lent money. Avram McKenzie, he lent Chaim Yankel Princelovsky. Yeah, Avram McKenzie lent him money. Okay, and now Meshkoina shel Yisrael, Chaim Yankel, the Jew from birth, his mashkon, his telephone was by the ger. Umeisa ger. Then the ger died. The ger died, and now what happens? The ger in the house of the ger. What's there? The phone, the mashkon, which I would call in English a collateral of the yid who borrowed money. Came another Israel and grabbed. He's from the WhatsApp group of from the website. Let's grab the ger's nechosim. He came and he grabbed the phone, who is Chaim Yankel's, and was held by the ger as a collateral. The new guy who wants to grab the grabber, we take it out of his hands. My time. Why is that? Since the ger died, the shibud, yeah, that, so to speak, mortgage, the land, the chiyuv of the Jew to return the money to the ger, there's nobody to give money to anymore. The deal is over, and it's poket, kilo popped out. It's removed automatically, right? And mimela, now the telephone is automatically 100% goes back to the hands of its legal owner, Chaim Yankel. Mimela, the new guy, the grabber, would say, hey, take your hands off my phone, says Chaim Yankel. The only reason was in the ger's house was because of give and take. There was a relationship between us of mal veloive. Once the ger is dead, Chaim Yankel, I don't owe him anything. Mimela, my phone is free of mortgage, I don't like the word mortgage when it comes to ulam shana. Yeah, free of the shibud. The shibud is like whoop, removed because there's no ger. He's in Gan Eden. And Mimela, you, Mr. Grabber, get your hands off it. It's completely mine, says the owner of the phone. That is a simpler case. Now comes the opposite case with a huge chiddush of the Rashba. Says now the next case, says the Gemara. Mashkoina shel ger biad Yisrael. The other way. Avraham McKenzie had to borrow money. His father doesn't give him money anymore. You know, that's so sad. Yeah, I've got to talk to Tim. Yeah. So, Mashkoina shel ger biad Yisrael. Now, the ger borrowed money from Yisrael. The ger who borrowed money when he was alive, he gave his cell phone to Yisrael. We're switching roles, yeah? Chaim Yankel is the malve, and Mackenzie's phone was by him. Umeisa ger, the ger died. Okay. Comes another Jew, Mr. Grabber, he comes to Chaim Yankel's house. Chaim Yankel is the one who lent money, and Avram McKenzie's phone is by him as a collateral. Came Grabber to Chaim Yankel's house and says, hey, wait a second, I know that phone says on it A.M. Avram McKenzie. It's his, and he's a ger, and he died. And I went to Amud Yomi, and I know that the chosim of the ger, what about them? They really belong to anybody. Hefker, so I'm going to get it. Now we say nishtazoi. So now depends. Let's portray a case, which Agmor portrays. Let's say he only lent him 100 shekels. Let's keep it for small sums, okay? And his phone is worth 200 shekels. My phone is worth less than that. Let's say the collateral was more than the actual loan, which can happen many times. We've seen it recently. So now says the Gemara like this. Ze kono keneged ma'oisov. Chaim Yankel, the one who lent the money and holds the collateral worth 200. Well, he really lent him 100 shekels. 100 shekel within this phone belonged to who? Belonged to Chaim Yankel, the lender. Why? Because Mackenzie, even after his death, owes money. Says the Rashba. All these funny faces appear on YouTube. It's terrible. Yeah. So Lemaisa, I'll explain soon. I'll soon explain. When Mackenzie died, the borrower, yeah, and now his phone of Mackenzie is by Chaim Yankel. Chaim Yankel is now collecting his debt, D-E-B-T, after the death of Mackenzie. And therefore, 100 shekels out of that phone belong to the one who lent the money. That's his way to reclaim and get his debt. Veze, however, Mr. Grabber did not completely lose. Veze kona sashar. Wow. The grabber got the rest because the rest of it is hefker. Again, rak rega tzvi, rak rega tevakasha. And Jeff, yeah, you okay? So now we have, again, the story is as follows. Chaim Yankel one sunny day says, Misken, the ger, I see him in yeshiva, in Torah, yeah, lend him 100 shekels. And Mackenzie, I lent you 100 shekels, give me your phone 200 shekels. Mackenzie died, such stories, okay? So now what? Chaim Yankel automatically is coining the 100 shekel within the phone that he's owed. I'm now going to explain. Says the Rashba, the ger died. We thought that when the ger dies, then the world's over. As we say in Hebrew, a very chutzpah thing, hakol met, as if nothing was said, nothing was done. Hakol met, everything's dead. No, says Rashba, not true. The ger died, so what he owns is not owned anymore by him. But the debt in Mackenzie's pocket, so to speak, there's a debt to Chaim Yankel, so that debt remains, even without a mashkon. If Chaim Yankel lent money to Mackenzie and Mackenzie died, even without mashkon, without shtar, without anything, when I lend money to someone, it's 100 shekel, there's like a general shibud somewhere out there within his money, bank account, credit card, socks, shoes, sforim, his messy room in yeshiva, there's 100 shekel hovering over there in his nechosim who belong to me. I'm Chaim Yankel, the lender. And that doesn't die. His nechosim are hefker. But I'm the malvik's, my nechosim. I have 100 shekel within his realm. check it, bevakasha. Slicha shani mitzapef alecha. Yeah, so Mimela, that 100 shekel belonged to Chaim Yankel. Chaim Yankel has a phone, Baruch Hashem, he doesn't have to fight for it. Within this phone, there's 100 shekels, so to speak, owed to him, and he gets that automatically. Because Mackenzie died Mimela, of course, 100 shekel belonged to me. The phone is worth another 100, which means there's extra. Came a very diligent, smart guy called Grabber. Yeah, Mr. Grabber. He grabbed the phone. The extra 100 belonged to him, just like any other nichsager. I can see you guys are very eager to ask questions. I'm stopping in the middle. I'm being very nice. And there's a line here. Let the guy who let Chaim Yankel, the lender, his chotzer should be coined to him. Now I'll preempt and I'll say, wait, Chaim Yankel had no kavana. He did not think of being koine. He didn't think, I want to be koine Mackenzie's phone, even the extra 100. He didn't think about it. He was like unaware of it. He was shakur in the sugi learning Gemara, didn't think of the phone. So frag the Gemara, I don't care. What I told you before. A person's chotzer can be koine even without the person wanting actively to be koine. Says Tosfos, he has to know that it's there. Yeah, he has to know about it, but he doesn't have to be wanted to be koine it. I'm telling you that's what, as far as I know, is halacha. Loi midaitoi, if let's say I don't know, a ball falls into my very nice, expensive, basketball, falls from the neighbor's kids, and they're mafkir it. Not Chalil Gezel. The mafkir the basketball, and it falls into my merpeset. If I'm not, as far as I know, that's definitely one way to read the Gemara. If I'm completely unaware, I didn't know, I'm not koine. If I know that it's there, look at the basketball. Between me and basketball, no good relationship. I have nothing to do with basketball. I have no Indian to be koine. So I'm part about it. I have no das, yes, to be koine. I don't need a basketball. Yeah. Still, it's koine. It's still koine. If so, over here, now comes to his question. If the first guy, Chaim Yankel, it's in his house, even if he didn't have kavana, I will be koine, and the grabber came early, Olamaisa, he knows it's there, of course, so let him be koine it. Let him be koine the entire phone, entire 200, not just the 100 he's anyhow owed. Amri answers the Gemara. You know what the story is? You know, sorry about that. Okay. 1 minute. Sorry about that. I'm sorry, something happened here. Delay say he's not around. Yeah, which means the Malve is not in town. The Malve is not in the area. So what? If there is a situation that if he wanted to, he would be koine, he buy mikni, he is there, he buy mikni matsikani, if he's physically around, and if he wanted to, he can be koine, the chotzer can do the trick for him. There's the whole question about matzia chotzer, mitzad shlichus, mitzid yad, often gitin. In other words, a chotzer of a person is koine like his hand. Yeah, I can't have my hand in a different city. I have to be in the area where I could be koine. Instead of me grabbing it, mechotzer does the job for me as long as I'm around. Or so says the Gemara here. I'm continuing the Gemara. But if he's leisa ledidei, if he himself is not around, if he is, ledidei, if he himself is not around, the bayu lemikni loy matzikani, you can't be koine with remote control, and maybe by shliach, but as long as you yourself are not around, you can't be koine. Chatzer enami loy kanya. The chotz is not koine either, says the Gemara at this point, which means we're making an ukimta. En chinami. If Chaim Yankel is around, he's having coffee in his dining room, and the ger died, and maybe he didn't know the ger died, and the phone is there. The other room is koine. Everything, like you said, is koine. Even without having special kavanah to be koine, you know the phone is there? Yes. You know the phone? That's it. The phone is yours automatically. But over here, the reason why the grabber chaps half of it is because Chaim Yankel is not in town. He went to Bnei Brak in order to learn Torah over there. He's not in town. He's not here. And therefore, if he's not around, his chotzer is not koine. That's what the Gemara wants to say. However, the Hilchasa, I'm now going with Rashi as opposed to other Rishonim. Halacha l'maaseh, says Rashi, Delay say bechatzeroy, deloi kono. Look at Rashi at the end of the Gemara before the Mishnah. It's very near where we are, a little bit below the Rashi, the two Dibra Maskos before Matnitin. Says Rashi, we changed from what we said. When do we say that the grabber got the other 100 and Chaim Yankel, the lender, only got the first? But the leise lemashkon bechatzeroy shel malve v'shas misas ager. Wow, he changed from what we said. The only reason he's making a different kimta, the only reason when the grabber chaps half and Chaim Yankel is left high and dry and not owning because he wasn't in his chotzer. When the ger died, the phone was in the street, on a bench, on a park bench. But if the mashkon is in his chotzer, is koina even if he's far away. Wow, not like we said. The Gemara concludes with a twist at the end. We're saying no, regardless of the location of the person, says Rashi at the end, if the person's chotzer, if the phone was in the chotzer or any other collateral, the person would be koined completely, legamre, from the whole thing, the kinyan chotzer, even if it's far away. No, Taisus makes a note here, and that's, we're not going now to the whole business of kinyan chotzer. The main sugas of kinyan chotzer, as far as I remember, is above Metzia, around Yud Aleph, and in Gittin. Kinyan chotzer says, Taisus points out, besides disagreeing with Rashi, I'm not going into that, you have to say that this is chotzer hamishtameres. There are two types of chotzer. There's a chotzer, when you leave home, you lock the door. I hope so, yeah. Your chotzer, your land, your apartment, your flat is a chotzer. Chotzer doesn't mean an open courtyard. Chotzer mishtameres is chotzer, which is guarded, kept. Yeah, things there are kept. You lock the door with a pladelet, with a code, and that's chotzer mishtameres. If somebody's object falls into your mirpeset and it's nicely fenced and burglars cannot come in, doesn't have to be at kidekach. I'm saying it's protected. Then you don't have to be in the area. Then the chotzer is kind of, even if you're in Timbuktu right now, you can be in Gibraltar and the chotzer is over here, mishtameres le'atzmo. But if the chotzer is an open field, if your chotzer is an open field in England, I was told people can walk over each other's fields, they're moichel, right? So if it's in someone's field where any Tom, Dick, and Harry may come in, and the ball fell over there, then you're only coined, the chotzer is only coined for you if oimid b'tzad sadehu. Then you have to be there and physically represent yourself by the side of the chotzer. But if it's in an loy mishtameres field, it's in your field in Yorkshire, and the field is completely open for anybody to come in. And here at the moment you're in Scotland, far away, mainly it's not koina. Again, I'm not going to the halachas, I'm just telling you general knowledge over here. Okay? So Lamaisi, you're right, Tzvi, enochinami. Lamaskona, Tzvi is right. If the phone would be in the land, generally speaking, with Chaim Yankel, let's say it's a closed apartment and it's there, okay? Even if Chaim Yankel is not around and the phone is there, Chaim Yankel is kind of everything. Why do we say here that the grabber was kind of the rest, the sum above the minimum, above the collateral? That is because, you know why? Because the phone is not in the chotzer. The phone is not in the possession. It's not in the domain of the malve. It's not in the domain of the malve. Then it's free for all, except for the basic amount which any Chaim Yankel is owed as a malve. We're not in the jungle, but anything above the actual sum of the milva can be grabbed by anybody if the phone is not in the chotzer of the malve. Then it's really free for all. Yeah. Then the remaining amount is free for all. The remainder. Yes, Baruch. Thank you for your patience. Horich pointed out a good thing. We know that halachically, mashkon has to be returned. Yeah, especially if it's a beged, a garment you wear, you have to return it to the person every day or every night, depends what kind of garment that is. Let's say this was a pajama, and it was in Tim McKenzie's house at night, not Tim McKenzie, Avram McKenzie's house at night, so now it's not in the domain of the malve. After Avram died, then the pajama was, I don't know, next to him under his pillow, and then what comes a guy and grabbed it, the grabber. What's the halacha? Very simple. The basic amount, let's say the milva was 100 shekel, the pajama is worth 200. Exactly what we said. The basic 100 belong to the malva regardless to where it is. It can be in a NASA station in Jupiter, wherever, lo mishaneh, because the 100 shekel owed to him will be his wherever they are. Nothing to do with the collateral. The extra 100 can be grabbed by anybody. because it's not physically in the chotzer of the malveh. Therefore, the extra will be enochanami held and owned by the grabber. Mamish the case of the Gemara, exactly like the Gemara. Very nice. We are now going into the pits. Ooh, into pits. We are going to say, we are now going to move away from the show. Oh, wow. Say goodbye to the bull. Maybe we'll change the picture on the website of the Shiur. As far as I know, there is not many bulls around in the future. There's bull, and there is, yeah, the bull was cute. Now we're going into the pit, and afterwards to the fire, even worse. But by then I'll be in Chutz Lawrence. Okay, says the Mishnah. So before we start the Mishnah, I want you to free yourselves of the shackles of anything you knew about bor. Okay, just liberate yourselves about anything you thought you knew about bor. Everything's going to be new, and we have the chart also, a very simple chart over here to help us. Says the Mishnah. A person dug a bowl in his reshus reshus hayochid, and he opened it to reshus harabim. Yeah, he made a tunnel in his own reshus hayochid, and eventually the tunnel actually ended up in reshus harabim. I assume eventually he blocked and stuffed the part in the opening in his reshus. So now what you have to picture it in your mind, but it's very easy. You have a bowl whose opening, whose mouth, as we call it, is in Reshus HaRabim, and if a person falls in there, he glitches like in a water park into Reshus HaYochid. So cool, yeah. So Reshus HaRabim is where the opening is, and most of the actual cavity of the bore is in Reshus HaYochid. Okay, it goes that way, shoots down. What? Garzer's tunnels? Yes. A Gaza. I thought it's some fancy word in English. Garzers. Gaza tunnels. Let's say he started digging a hole in Reshus HaRabim, but he stuffed it very nicely. But really, the opening is in Reshus HaYochid, just the opposite. He has, when you walk in his land, in Reshus HaYochid, there is a hole in his domain, in Reshus HaYochid. If anybody falls there, boom, he'll find himself very quickly stuck, down and under in Reshus HaRabim. Third case, Reshus HaYochid u'poschel Reshus HaYochid acher. Let's say I started the bore in my Reshus HaYochid, but eventually I dug a hole in Reshus HaYochid of my friend, my next door neighbor. So if you walk in my next door's neighbor, then you may chas v'shalom fall into the pit, into the opening in his domain, in his chotzer, but that would quickly lead you into my chotzer. In all three variations, chayev. Yeah, in other words, whether the opening of the bor is in Reshus HaYochid or Reshus HaRabim, or the chiddush is even to Reshus HaYochid, and the chiddush is that if I dug a hole in my friend's Reshus HaYochid, I'm chayev, even though I'm chayev on people falling there. Let's say he's away. He didn't know how to stuff it. He's a special education person. I don't know whatever the case may be. So Maisa, he didn't close the bore, and it's my work. I would say, Reshus HaYochid, I'm not chayev. It's not my domain. It's not a place where lots of people walk. It's a private domain. The hazard is much lower because not so many people walk there. The chiddush is you can't say that. As long as you dug a hole, wherever that may be, either Reshus HaYochid or Reshus HaRabim, you chayev. The only variation, by the way, one second, the only variation which does not exist here is Reshus HaRabim, Reshus HaRabim. Yeah, I dug a hole in Achal Lachish. I'm so industrious, the opening is in Luz, all the way below the park. Yeah. So then, of course, I'm chayev because Reshus HaRabim, l'choiro, the way we think now, since Kita Dalet till now, we always know boy Reshus HaRabim is chayev. We're in for a surprise. But the Maisa, that's not even mentioned, and later on the Maisa, the Mishnah will mention it. The Mishnah later will mention Reshus HaRabim and animals fell inside you chayev. But right now we're talking about a bor which is the gadol. What Mishnah is coming to tell me that regardless of the location, Yochid, your own domain, or Rabim, you always chayev. You may ask a question, and thank you for waiting. In my domain, what are you doing here? Nobody invited you. Why am I chayev and a bor in my domain? My kids know to be careful. My wife knows how to be careful, and I'm careful. A guy came without permission, and he fell inside. My boys, the Gemara said already twice. What are you doing in my reshus? Who invited you? That would be a true time. We're talking about Reshus HaYochid, that the person was mafkir. He told everyone it's hefker. Everybody can come and walk around as much as they want, but the ball remains mine. I dug a hole in my chotzer. I allowed all the kids of the neighborhood graciously to come and play around there, yeah? And I kept the ball for myself because I want to eventually put my gold bars over there. So then I'm chayev. Okay? So there are two types of boros I'm chayev on. Yeah? One bor is in Reshus Harabim. I have no permission to do such a thing, and it's not mine. Reshus Harabim is not mine ever. I'm chayev because I'm behaving viciously. I'm behaving terribly by digging and not filling. And Reshus HaYochid I'm chayev because it's my property. It's my property that I'm mafkir. I'm taking my property, sending it away to the rabbim to enjoy that place, and which is my bowl, which remains my bowl. The actual rim of the bowl is mine, and people are, by my permission, allowed to walk all over there. I'm chayiv not because of what I did. I'm allowed to dig a bore by myself. I'm chayiv because I was mafkir, and it's my property, just like my show and like my eish. These are the two types of boros. Question or comment or joke? Yeah. You didn't know. He came in the middle. I came in the middle of the night. Oh, true. This is very nice. Shank and cheek. Tosis asks your question. If I dug a hole in someone else's reshus, we discussed recently, I have to pay him for ruining his bow, his chotzer, right? But from that point onwards, once I paid him for ruining his chotzer, then he is chayiv and people falling in there. So that's Tosis' question. Oh, then maybe I'm chayiv also and everything. Could be. So you're answering your own question. Beautiful. Very nice. Yitzchok made a good point. If I dug a hole in someone else's reshus, so I'm chayiv on ruining his field or his yard. Once I paid him for ruining his place, and he has to stuff it, and he didn't, but he is the owner. He was compensated already. From now on, he is chayiv. It's not my chiyuv, it's his chiyuv. But then Yitzchok answered, Lamaisa, if I did not pay him, maybe then I'm chayiv. Let's say it's in Chutz La'aretz, or I don't know what. I didn't pay him for the thing yet. So maybe then I'm still chayiv for everybody falling there. It's my doing, my thing. You're possibly right. Could very, very well be. Yes, Yosef? Something. Says the Gemara, quick. Says the Gemara, the person has a bow. Let's just ignore everything else. The most important thing is the petach. The opening is the Reshus Harabim. You're chayev. The zel bor amur b'Torah divrei Bishmol. Says Rabbi Shmuel. That's the bor of the Torah. It's a bor in Reshus Harabim. Bor in Reshus Harabim. That's the name of the game. That's the bor you're chayev on. Usually, when Tanaic say that's it, they mean exclusive, and they want to exclude something else. Rabbi Shmuel says, in my book, you know which bor you're chayev? The one in Reshus Harabim. Beware of my words. Rabbi Akiva argues on Rabbi Shmuel, Oimer, Hifkir Reshusoi, lo hifkir boiroi, zeu bor amur b'Torah. No, says Rabbi Akiva. If I dug a bor in my reshus, in my garden, and I was mafkir it, as mafkir the garden, such a nice, generous guy, everybody can walk, and everybody can fall, and the bor remained mine. If the water falls inside, or my gold bars will be kept there, it's mine, okay? That's the borot Torah is mechayev. Rabbi Akiva says, in very Balabatish general terms, Rabbi Akiva views the bor in Reshus HaYochid to be worse than the one in Reshus Harabim. So generally speaking, Rabbi Shmuel is pushing more towards the Reshus Harabim bor. I'm acting viciously, irresponsibly. It's not mine. The bor, listen to the Hagdoros, and then everything will move very smoothly. Rabbi Shmuel says, you know why you have Mr. Bor owner? Because you are acting like a behema chaya. You are digging in the middle of the street, but it's not yours. The street is not mine, right? So it's not about ownership, it's about behavior. But Rabbi Akiva says the other way. He says, I see the bar in Reshus Harabim less terribly, more favorably. The one in my domain is worse because, well, we are in Bava Kama. Bava Kama is nizkei momoin, my money. If this is my bor, owned by me, in my property, in my tabu, and that bor, I'm now allowing the people to walk around at the nichshal, that's the bad thing. Just like my bor, and my fire, and my anything, and my cat, and my dinosaur, whatever is owned by me. Bor owned by me. But Rabbi Akiva, that's the name of the game. That's the bor the Torah doesn't like. Of course, both Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, they both have sources. I'm running ahead a little bit. I'm not continuing to read now. I'm just telling you Akdama. When the Torah talks about bo, it says two things. On one hand, the Torah says ki yichre isho bo. Sorry, not show. If a person digs a bo, that's an action, even a shus rabim. On the other hand, the Torah says ba'al habo. What's ba'al habo? Not a husband, owner, the owner of the bo. It's about ownership. So each Tana has another word of the Torah, flashing and flickering. Yeah, Rabbi Kiva goes for the Rishus HaYachid and Rabbi Shmuel for Rishus Rabim. That's a very general way to look at their machalokas. Now you can look at your charts, yeah, and now we're going to have a machalokas amoyroim between Rabbah and Rav Yosef on how to learn machalokas tanoim, machalokas amoyroim on how to interpret machalokas tanoim. That's a very common thing. That's, by the way, a very easy one. There are much, much harder ones, as you remember. And thank you very much for Tzvi, always prints the charts and gives them to everybody. Thank you, Tzvi. Let's continue. Amar Rabbe. Now Rabbe comes with his take on the machlokas. Amar Rabbe. Bebor b'rshus harabim. Ebor b'rshus harabim kolal borot ligid mechayev. Bebor b'rshus harabim. How can anybody go against what my teacher in Kita Dalet taught me? Joking. Of course, bor b'rshus harabim. Everybody agrees across the board. Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Shmuel, you chayev. My time. Not the Makita Dalet, because it says in the Torah, Omar Kro, ki yiftach v'chi yichre. It says twice, not twice. It says two different verbs in the Torah about a bo. When you open an existing bor, the area has many borot in the street. It's called a menol in Hebrew. Menol. Menhol? Yeah, you didn't know? Menol. Mem, nun, vav, lamed. Menol. Menhol, yeah. So the menol in the street, by the area, they cover it very well with this steel kind of thing. Let's say I opened it, and I think I'm very cool and funny, and I did not close it. I am chayev. That's to open. What's yichre? If I dig a bor, lichrot. Michre in Hebrew is a mine. Yeah, I mine. I dig a bor. I'm chayev. Says the Gemara, the Bryce, whatever. Im al psicha chayev al kriya l'kol sheken. Why does the Torah have to tell me if you open an existing bor, you're chayev? And also, if you dig one, of course, if I open an existing bar, I'm chayev, even though I didn't do it, I only made it accessible. Of course, if I dug the whole thing, I'm chayev. The Torah doesn't have to tell me that. Elo, why is the Torah using kilu redundant verb over here? To accentuate and to stress and to tell me that any shape or form of kriya, of the action of what? Of digging or opening or anything, that's what I'm chayiv for, as opposed to, that's for sure I'm chayiv on. As opposed to, says Rabbi Shmuel, the one in my house. If I have a bow in my house, I'm not chayiv when I dug. When I dug, get your stupid things off my back. As long as I'm digging a bow in my domain, in the safety of my backyard in Golders Green or in Ramat Bet Shemesh, yeah, of course I'm allowed to dig. Digging is fine. What are you blaming me for? That I was mafkir? I'm now the lawyer of Rabbi Shmuel. I mafkir the yard. Everybody can come and play in my backyard in Ramah, and the bor is still mine, and the kids may very well be falling in. That says Rabbi Shmuel, I'm not chayav for. Why not? Says Rashi, a very, very interesting svara. Says Rashi, when I was mafkir mechotzer, I was only mafkir mechotzer for the good things, not for the bad things. I was only mafkir it not in order to be chayav and nezikin. I didn't understand that svara, to be honest with you. How does he have the prerogative to decide that? I'm sorry, North Korea. I'm really sorry, North Korea, but we are. I'll tell you the Yam Shel Shlomo, and then I'll repeat the rest, okay? I saw a beautiful Yam Shel Shlomo. It says the Yam Shel Shlomo in Achron, a very, very central all-time Achron. Yam Shel Shlomo says something else. He says like this. Why are you mechayiv the person who is a vicious, irresponsible guy for digging holes and then mafkir? It says in front of three people, I mafkir my yard. Says he's not a nice guy, but why are you mechayiv him for talking? All he did was to speak. He says this is hefker. Again, not a nice guy, not a shidduch for my daughter. In Shamayim they'll punish him, but Lamaisa says Rabbi Shmuel, the Torah doesn't punish him for that. Because just by doing something verbally, talking and being mafkir, that level, according to Bishmal, the Torah wasn't mechayiv. The Torah was only mechayiv of somebody who's digging berishis, digging illegally and living in there. That's what you're chayiv for. But if you just said my bor is hefker, you're not chayiv. And if you don't like it, you guys all have PhD in show. Let me ask you a question. Let's say I have a bad show, I have a wild show. I don't have koch to educate it. The guy has 12 kids to educate. One of the derech, I don't know. He has a show who's wild, and a koch for the shore. Not taking him to psychologist. You know, the guy, I'm not recommending it. Let's say the guy is mafkir his wild show. Is he chayiv for what the shore does? No. He's a bad guy. No. He's not a nice guy, not a good guy. But if Mashor is hefker, I'm not chayiv for Mashor. He's not Mashor anymore. I also lost 10,000 shekels that he's worth. Same thing with the bor, says Rabbi Shmuel, according to Yam Shlomo. If I was just mafkir the bor, which was legal, and my hefker made it accessible, I'm not chayiv for that. And that's not what the Torah spoke about according to Rabbi Shmuel. Let's continue. Lo nechleku ela bebor. Continue today's page. Bebor birshusoi. Bor in my own domain, which was mine, legally dug, and now I was mafkir its entire surroundings. Rabbi Kiva sovar bor birshuso nami chayev. Rabbi Kiva says you chayev on the bor in your own rishus too. Dichtiv, what I told you, bala bor. The bor the isla bailim komer rachmono. Aha. Bala bor says Rabbi Akiva. You can look at the chart. Rabbi Akiva says you chayev on both. Whether it's a private or public domain, you're chayiv. The only one that says potter on the chart is A2. The only case you're potter is Rabbi Shmuel in the private domain, the private sector. That is Rabbi Shmuel, okay? Right? That is A2. The Seder, Rabbi Shmuel Sovar, it says Balabo. So you see a bor owned by me, I am chayiv. How does Rabbi Shmuel live with it? And says the Gemara, don't worry. Rabbi Shmuel Sovar, Baal Hatakolo. Baal Habo doesn't mean Baal Habo as a pit. Some pits are legal. I'm allowed to dig a bore in the safety of my home and put 10 signs, beware, beware, nobody comes close. That's okay, right? Baal Hatakolo. Bore is not a physical bore. Bore is, what's it called? A stumbling stone, stumbling something, obstacle, thank you. When I dug it, it was not an obstacle, I'm okay. Only when I dug it in Rishus Harabim, from the first second, I brought my shovel to the middle of Ayalon and start digging middle of Broadway in Manhattan. You dig a hole door. Then of course I'm chayiv straight away. I'm a roshut by my action. Only on that I'm chayiv on says Rabbi Shmuel. Guys, we had to continue just a few lines. Yeah, please, please, please. Now that's yeah. No, frag the Gemara. Okay, we're still in Rabbah. We're still in Rabbah. Frag the Gemara. Ella, if so, according to you, Rabbah, Rabbi Akiva, it's a one-way machlokes. It's called in Hebrew Chad Sitri, right? Rabbi Akiva agrees to Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel argues on Rabbi Akiva. Frag the Gemara. Ella, if so, my zehu bor amur b'Torah dekam Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva sounded exclusive, not inclusive, right? Rabbi Akiva said that's the bor in the Torah. Which one? In Rishus Rabbi Akiva Yochid. That's the bor. Why? Rabbi Akiva is not excluding the one in Rishus Rabbi. He says both of them are bor. So as Rabbi Akiva says, Zehu sounds like nobody else. And says the Gemara, Zehu bor sheposach b'kosuv tchila letashlumin. When the Torah spoke about paying, not about the actual occurrence happening, the nezek. When the Torah tells you the bottom line, you got to pay, mister, the Torah says, Baal bor yashalim. So Rabbi Akiva says, you can't ignore. Rabbi Akiva is like shouting at Rabbi Shmuel. You can't ignore the pasuk. Not that I'm excluding other bors. You are. Rabbi Akiva is talking to Rabbi Shmuel. How can you ignore the bor written in the Torah as a Baal, as Rishus HaYachid, when it's outright in the Torah? Yeah. Not that I'm excluding anything else. Why are you, Rabbi Shmuel, excluding the bor in Rishus HaYachid when it's outright black and white? That's how Rabbah explains Machlokes Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. The Rav Yosef, quickly, 2 more minutes. The Rav Yosef Omar, Rav Yosef is the second chart. You can see it in your charts if you want. Just the opposite. The one bor everyone agrees to is what? Rishus HaYachid. Everyone agrees that Rabban Rishus HaYachid Yechayev. By time Balabo Marachmano, the bor the Isla Bailim Askinan. Everyone knows about the pasuk that says Balabo, the owner of the bor. You don't own your bor in Rishus Harabim. That's not yours. Which bor is owned by you legally and good and well and fine? Excuse the pun, very well owned by you. Everyone agrees to that. Kipligi, now this Don't get a heart attack, please. Not now, not here. Keep pligi bebobel shus harabim. Because the machlok is about regular bor dagin u'shus harabim. Rabbi Shmuel said bobel shus harabim nami chayev. Bobel shus harabim you chayev on. You dug something without permission. You're a criminal. You're chayev. Tichtiv kiftach v'chichre. It says you open or you dig. Exactly like we said before in Rabbi Akiva, here we're saying Rabbi Shmuel. If you open an existing bore, of course you have on digging a new one. Which means, says Rabbi Shmuel, the Torah uses extra words to mechadish that even though the bore was not in my possession, not my domain, not my anything, the actual act, that verb, that action of digging is, that's a Pandora box. That's it. Now everything is terrible and you chayev on that. Rabbi Akiva, listen to this. That's a huge chiddush. Rabbi Akiva says, no. Hanu mitzvah tzrichi. Rabbi Akiva, not Rabbi Akiva holds. He says, bor b'shusabi, you're not chayev on. Look at the chart. Even the chart says so, not just me. Rabbi Akiva holds, according to Rabbi Yosef, the only case out of the 4 variations you're potter is B1, and that is bor b'shus harabi. For Rabbi Akiva, you are potter. Wow. In other words, Rabbi Akiva believes that the only bor that the Torah is mechayev me is a bor owned by me, just like the show, just like the Aish, just like my alligator. Anything owned by me, I'm chayev, including the bor. But a bor that I acted in a vicious way, but is not mine, financially speaking, I'm potter. Wow. That's what Rabbi Akiva holds, according to Rabbi Yosef. We don't hold of that la'alacha, by the way, yeah. But that's Rabbi Akiva according to Rabbi Yosef. Now Rabbi Akiva has a problem. Wait, what's with the extra words psicha and kriya? It's an extra word to teach me something. Says Rabbi Akiva, I'm cool. Back to the Gemara. Rabbi Akiva, hanu mitzrach tzrichi. The Torah did have to tell me opening and digging. Why? Because of Achmon ki yiftach. Had the Torah only told me that if I open an existing bor, I would call it in nice English, uncovering an existing bor, taking out that heavy metal case from the area. Had I only said that, Havamina would have thought, if you open an existing bor, it's enough to cover it well and cover it back with that metal thing. But if I dug one, if I really dug it from scratch, it's not enough to cover. I actually have to fill it in. Now let's fill it in with dirt. And if I covered the cavity which I caused, maybe it's not good enough. Maybe I'll be chayiv if anybody fell inside. That would be havamina. Because of achmoni ki yichre. If the Torah would only say yichre, if you dig a hole, havamina kriya u'debai, I would say kriya that digging the by kisu mishum david ma'aser. I'm only chayiv to cover something which I did from scratch. Aval posech david ma'aser. If I only open someone else's bar, it's not so bad. The bar was there. I just made it accessible. I wouldn't automatically know it from koire. Of course, logic would say otherwise, carefully, my friend. If the Torah says if I dig, I would have known open. It's not the same level. Kamash Malan, I'm chayiv on both. I'm chayiv on both, which means Rabbi Akiva very nicely explained to me why you need both koire and poseach. So for him, we are not learning now, that a borin or shus harabim I'm chayiv. Those psukim are not extra to tell me about shus harabim. So really, Rabbi Akiva is back to his own domain, his own daladamis. Rabbi Akiva says the only chayiv on the bor in your own reshus. You're not here. Why does Rabbi Shmuel sound exclusive? Only this bor, not the other. The answer is before. No, when the Torah talks about Nezikin, the Torah says the bor that you open, the bor Neshus Harabim, but it doesn't exclude the bor Neshus Hayachid, according to Rabbi Shmuel. Yeah, keep the chart for tomorrow. Imertz Hashem will continue, and Imatzlech Be'ezra Hashem. Make sure you don't fall into any pits, spiritual or physical. Thank you very much. Atzloch Rabba. Have a good day.